everyone. Welcome to Confidently Be You. This is my new channel that I'm relaunching that was formerly Conquer Your Chaos. And in this space, I'll be interviewing people who have inspiring stories they would like to share about overcoming fear, challenges, and the expectation of others. And I created this space because hearing inspirational stories of what other people have overcome in their lives has helped me forge my own way to a more fulfilling life. And that brings me to my very first guest on this new channel, Ana Del Castillo, who is a rightness expert and certified coach with over 20 years of experience. Her specialty is working with women who have great lives, but consistently feel like there's something wrong, or they feel dead and unsatisfied in their amazing lives. Sorry, I can't read on my own handwriting. She helps these women own the inherent passion and rightness in themselves so they can feel vital and alive in their skin and in their lives again. And I can totally relate to all of that. And welcome, and thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be reconnected. So for those of you who, aren't just meeting me for the first time, so Jennifer and I actually went to school together and got accredited together. And I personally liked her so much. She's just one of those people, for me at least, just has one of those hearts that are generous, kind, truly wants what's best for other people. And we've just kept in touch throughout the years since, and I'm thrilled to be the first person. I feel like I'm the maiden voyage, and this is my wheelhouse. I love this conversation. We'll talk about this until I lose my breath.
I could do the same. First of all, thank you for the kind words. And yeah, when I was thinking about guests who to have for interviews, you were my intuition just had you pop in my head because I follow you on social media. And I love your vulnerable, authentic posts. And and I just remember our time together in IPAC. We were paired together, I remember during Mod 2, and you just cracked open some really deep emotional things for me that still were a big part of my healing journey, even though it was so long ago. It was like that additional opening that I needed to help me become more confident and bring me to where I am right now. So thank you again. And so what is your confidence story?
I love this. This is such a big, broad. So my confidence story, like most people's confidence stories, starts with a complete lack of it, right? It's like like most people's Samson story or Wonder Woman story, whatever it is, starts with the opposite of it. I started out, like a lot of people do, with a really challenging, painful upbringing. It was abusive on a lot of different levels. I had parents who were both undiagnosed. One was a malignant narcissistic adaptation. The other one was covert and borderline. And I survived as best as I could. And a lot of that looked like, I got to be honest with you. First, I was just outright terrified and sort of was schizoid, could not really be in the world. And then I turned like my dad. I thought, well, whoever has power in this dynamic is my dad. And so I ended up being a little bit more like my dad for a lot of years. Was in therapy, did all that for a little while, but nothing was going to get in. And then I had another blow, which was I was successful. I was, on the road with a show. I was on Broadway, and I was still sort of doing things that were a lot of chutzpah, fuck you, you watch me, I'm telling you, I was like my dad, with not a lot of feeling. It was like sort of a reptilian version of a human being. And then something really large and traumatic happened, which was the murders of both my father and my brother. And I was in a fight with my dad at that time. And whatever it was that I had, and I remember the day that they died, I had specifically had an overwhelming urge to call them and tell them that I loved them. Like I had an intuitive knowing. And I was so hard, understandably, given what had happened. Like, I was so hard that I was like, no, you can go. Can I curse on this, by the way? Is it
Go
okay?
ahead and curse.
I was like, you all can go fuck yourself. Like the intuitive hit that I had, I was like, go fuck yourself. And then when I got the call at 3 a.m. that they're dead, you have to come home. The first thing that happened was that I could still get emotional now. It tore me to my knees, and I was like, I didn't tell him I loved him. I didn't tell him I loved him. And I could not, the fact that I loved him still, and that I could no longer deny that in me. And I could not, like, that ripped through a lot of the defenses that I had, and I could no longer, it like mocked my own defenses, and I could no longer like shove it down. It like opened me up into being a feeling person for the first time at an age where, like, I was a little long in the tooth, to be honest with you. And then I had to figure out how to actually feel, and how to actually have boundaries, and how to actually be confident, be in my own skin, be in my own knowing, and what I call rightness, without it being a justification, argument, defensiveness, explanation, like a fuck. There's a difference between being who you are as an or actually just like having boundaries and going, I hear you, I understand. I understand the ramifications, and I'm going to be me regardless. Like, without that kind of fight. So I don't know if I answered the question, but that was sort of the short, long, or long, short version of how I got here,
Well, I thank you for sharing all of that. And I can resonate kind of in my own way, in a different way. Like, my mom passed away from a heart attack. And I remember to this day being in the grocery store and getting a frantic phone call from my sister. And she was unconscious for a few days, and then she passed away. And there was all this unresolved shit. Like, and I've had this conversation with other people who lose love. It's not fun. It sucks either way when you lose someone, whether you're expecting it or not. But when you're not expecting it, there's all this unresolved stuff you weren't able to prepare for. That is like, what's that?
My cat just like practically ripped. Yeah, my cat decided to join this conversation, and then all of a sudden the cat was like, gotta go.
Cat's like, I'm done.
So that was that. Oops. Sorry, didn't mean to ruin a tender moment.
No, I remember you gave me the heads up about your cat. So
yeah.
But yeah, so I was just this chronic people pleaser who was afraid of upsetting anybody, and I was always expected to be the good one, and just give in to what everyone else wanted. And so as I got older, I felt guilty and like really deep-rooted shame if I did something for myself or wanted to. It was looked at as selfish if you put yourself first, right? Thankfully, more and more education is out there now about how that's like putting on your oxygen mask. You got to take care of you first before you can really be there for anybody else. And so when I lost my mom, that was a huge wake-up call for me, and just assessing a lot of just toxic things that were in my life. It's a lot I'm not going to unpack right now, but a lot of things that I was avoiding and ignoring and suppressing. And it got to a point, and then after my mom died, I got another job, and I moved from another city to New York City, and like all these things distracted me. And then all of a sudden, that's when all of a sudden I started feeling my mom's loss. It just like hit me like a ton of bricks, and I started like assessing a lot of things in my life. And what I realized, my mom always used to push things away to one day. Oh, one day I'll do this, one day I'll do that, one day I'll do this. And she was always doing for other people, or not setting aside time to take the action for things. I remember she used to write like pages of like dreams and goals she had each year. She never did. And it was always the same goals every year. And so a big part of the inspiration of my work as a coach is, we all give ourselves the one day bullshit line. Like, oh, one day I'll get to this. And we don't know if we have another day. We don't know. So my goal is helping people confidently be themselves and make one day start happening now, and just do steps, just start taking action. So it's interesting how like we have a lot of similar parallels, different experiences, but they all fit in like those same categories.
Yeah, we all have part of the reason why I tell my story is, or share my story, and I've shared it in different like venue. I've shared it like national. I've like shared parts of my story on like a national level or like in whatever. But part of the reason why I share my story is so that there's people see that there's an actual way to be present in your body, feel right with how wrong things have been. And I don't mean like righteous, self-righteous. I mean like genuinely right and congruent in your own skin, regardless of what's happened. So that's the one thing. But then I don't like telling my story. And I don't mean I personally, I don't like telling my story, because then what ends up happening is that a lot of people feel like, well, I didn't go through something that bad. I shouldn't be like, they start to do the shoulds on, they start to compare. And that's like trauma, upset, feeling insecure, feeling sort of like where you are in your own system and not being able to speak up and not being able to, like take the steps forward and not being able to, it doesn't matter the level or the degree of hurt or pain or trauma that has happened in your life. The only thing that matters is in your life today, what is it stopping you from doing? And how to actually move yourself forward so that you can. So I don't like, I don't mind telling my story, but I don't want people to feel like, oh, I'm, like they don't have a right to actually feel their things,
Right. And I get that. Like, so it takes time. I think the more you share, the easier it gets. But yeah, we all have a different story, and the one person's story isn't, it's like the comparison game. When you compare other people's perfect lives on social media, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not a competition or who had more trauma than the other. It's just different. It's still trauma. Trauma can come in different forms.
Yeah, not a good competition game.
Not a
no.
not a good competition game. And so yeah, and that's why when you hear different stories, for me, that's podcasts and YouTube channels. And you have an amazing YouTube channel that I'll definitely include the link for in the show notes later. When you start hearing other people who've overcome something, right? Even if yours isn't so bad or different, if someone else can overcome all these really horrible experiences and still create a meaningful, happy, fulfilling life.
Yeah, I'm not kidding you that I'm no bullshit about this. Like, I'm not someone who has skipped over or put pink paint over the smelly, stinky garbage. And I don't mean that my life has been garbage, but I'm not a spiritual bypass kind of gal.
Right.
My life today, there is no reason why my life looks and feels and is the way it is. My life today is like deeply, passionately, like sort of remarkably in love and married to a man who is like where it's the kind of like laughter, joy, partnership, listening, respect. Like it's just doing life with someone who is one of my best friends, and if I may say, and brag actually, like, and I have like raunchy sex with like my best friend, and I get to actually like not cut off like the sexier parts of myself, right, and him as well, and that's why I say that. And then also at the same token, where my nervous system feels calm, where I don't wake up like so much of like, I think this is my belief, is that for a while, especially before my father and my brother's deaths, is that I had a great life. Like I was on the road, I was touring, I was making tons of money. I lived a dream, which was to be in this particular, I was, like I was just like doing a lot of stuff that I had set my sights on. And I remember being on stage at a certain point with someone who was like my idol. I was performing with someone who was my idol. And I remember being like, I can't feel anything. Well, that's interesting. I wonder where I'm gonna go for dinner. Like that was as deep as my thoughts went at that time. And I had anxiety underneath that I didn't quite understand what it was about. There is, and I swear to you, a way so that you work like to have as much, all the trauma, all the things in your life, you can actually have a life that it feels good, is good, where your nervous system is whole, stable, solid, where when something happens to you, you aren't thrown off.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's what I call like a deep rightness.
Yeah, and what really jumped out at me is when you said a life that feels good.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've been experiencing more so in my life. And even after, going through a challenging divorce, and then doing different things in my career and evolving that, what I learned as I dealt with various traumatic things in my life, I noticed for the longest time, I kept, just when I thought I healed something, it was like, oh no, here's another layer that I have to heal. And it's only been, even though I've gotten a lot of things straightened out in my life, the feeling part for a while with my nervous system took the longest. Like, it had to catch up with the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Because for a while I was feeling like anxious and nervous, but I didn't have the things that I needed to be anxious and nervous about. But it's always been that fight or flight, I think, ingrained in me. And during 2020, I've been able to do more inner work, and it's been an ongoing process for like 11 years.
Yeah.
And when we did our coaching program, I guess we started that 5 years ago. That started like a whole other layer of that. And I guess what I'm getting at with it is healing is an ongoing journey. And just when you think you've healed something, you're gonna uncover something new with that. But getting back to the life that feels good, only about 2 months ago, because I struggled with sleep, used to wake up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Only about 2 months ago have the rest of my nervous system like caught up with me. And I've been less anxious, or I've just been handling anxiety in a different way. Do my ramblings make sense there?
It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. I wanted to thank you for sharing all of that. I wanted to what you were talking about reminds me of something. There's this idea, this is my, if you and the people who listen don't have to take this on. This is just my particular theory and my philosophy and how I approach things. I don't have it as there's a fixed end game in sight. I don't have it either as healing. I have it as a relationship to myself. It is I also, the idea of the reason why I don't have it as healing is because most of us come from a point of view of there's an uncomfortable feeling that comes up, right? And we don't like it. And then we want to fix it, change it, heal it, alter it in some way, suppress it, repress it. We just don't like the feeling. Nobody likes those uncomfortable feelings. We've been suppressing it for the longest time because we never actually had the opportunity, never learned how to actually be with challenging, sometimes confronting realities. You know what I mean? It's like if you have an idea about who you are, or you have an idea about a relationship, if you have an idea about the world, if you have an idea about God, if you have an idea about whatever it is, and something confronts it, you either have to like deal with reality or you like push it away. A lot of us, especially the ones who are like traumatized, can't really deal with reality. Do you know?
Yeah.
And so what we do is we're like constantly pushing things around, and we don't like the uncomfortable feelings of that. How I work with my people, work with myself, work with people, is literally creating a profound experiential moment by moment relationship to ourself where there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. That uncomfortable feeling that's coming up is not something that needs to be fixed, healed, like spoken to, suppressed, none of it. It's literally just supposed to, it is coming up for a reason. It is something to be listened to, respected, cared for. It is something that informs us. So I personally, like, whenever I hear, like, when I talk to sometimes with women, like, what did you do? What did you work on to do? I didn't work on, and I don't mean I loved myself. I listened to I respected myself. I like cared for myself. Instead of suppressing, I like actually treated myself the way my dearest friend would, the way a lover would. I gave myself exquisite attention in those spots. And so I don't believe in healing, so to speak, on that level. I believe in connecting ongoing until I die.
I love that angle with relationship with self.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it took me a while to, because it took me a while to realize, like, you always want to like fix something, make it go away.
Always.
And things didn't change in my life until I started having a relationship with myself. Journaling was a lifesaver for me because I didn't have a lot of people I could unpack a lot of my stuff with. And then eventually I did start going to therapy, and the journaling helped me in between therapy sessions and all of that. But for what it's like similar with the work I do with my clients, and we focus on like identity. And one of the things that I teach people is our triggers are our teachers. When something triggers us, and we initially want to react, and we think, oh, this person's doing something to me, right? Yeah. But actually it's the trigger, and it's what our subconscious is projecting onto the situation. And then that's that opportunity. Like I tell my clients, you hit a pause on it, find like a space where you can just, like, that neutral space to then uncover what are you feeling? Like, I have journal prompts, what are you feeling? What am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? Has this happened? Have I felt this way before? Right? When you just ask yourself these questions, oh yeah, I have felt this way before. When have I felt this way before? And then you start realizing. It's amazing the power of asking questions.
Oh my God, better questions. There's a much better question between what's wrong with me or what's underneath the thing that's making me so angry, or what's happening that I feel so sad here. Those are very different questions and very different inquiries. I want to add something. It's like I'm always sort of listening to things from the point of view, or from the listening of, like, I have some clients who they can't and they won't and are not able to think their way out of the somatic like trap that they're in. Their leg is inside of a particular somatic trap. And there's like so for me, I genuinely believe in, especially for women, there is like, when women are depressed, when we have a lot of depression, usually we're depressed, like some of us are like walking around with like a lack of energy and a lack of life and a lack of passion and a lack of there's just like, we have to swallow so much shit.
Yeah.
That where do we start? If we're going to start back to when we're 5 years old, it takes sometimes a long time to like, and the head helps, but the body still has to, it's like what you were talking about, where you're like, okay, my head knows, but like my body is still stuck somewhere,
Right.
And so for me, there is something fundamentally deeply important in accessing the in a good way, in a safe way, where like allowing women to have permission to just like, Like,
Yeah.
go to a rage room, go to the freaking, like twist like you have every reason to be enraged.
Absolutely.
Every reason. Find a space. To shake it out. I do shaking meditations with people where it's like you access and you just let yourself be, for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. You just let your body literally not think and just do and like be however way to just get into our bodies and be inside of what our real authentic feelings are that make no logical sense to maybe something that's going on.
I love I never heard of shaking meditation.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. For a while I was doing, before COVID, I had some creative meditation events where I rented a space and I had art supplies like collage and paint and stuff. And I would do a themed meditation like on abundance, or I can't remember the other topics off the top, but I would create a special meditation for a theme. And then people would create after that. And for me, art has been such an important piece of self-expression.
Love it.
Like music and painting, and because you can't express something, but a song with all these particular lyrics, either an angry song or it's saying it for you. And the same thing with art and painting and creating has always been that like escape that's helped me express something that I yet didn't know the words for, but was able to let out in another way.
Yes.
So that sounds like another way of just, again, being able to purge something from your system before you have the words for it. And it seems like the words eventually show up, but sometimes we just have to get the feelings moved, that energy moved before we can even put a word to it.
Yeah, sometimes it's grief, sometimes it's like there's a way in which our head can get in the way of like, you wake up and you go, I just feel so sad. I don't know why I feel so sad. Oh, I don't have any reason to be sad. And so we go on because our brains have tried to convince us that we shouldn't be sad, but we're deeply sad. And we don't know why we're sad. And so then that feeling goes down. I don't know why there's a bunch of stuff that we put under the rug, and then we have lumpy rugs, and then we don't understand why we're like dead and we don't feel anything. Because there's like a million feelings that we've just from our heads have like talked our way out of, so yeah, anything. I love that. Art therapy, art, like anything that's an expression that you get out of your head and are able to actually like put out, brings more, it like clears the pipes and
definitely
leaves the constipation, so to speak.
Right. I've used this term before with clients, emotional constipation.
Yeah.
It helps clear that. And there's a word I want to circle back to that you said is the shoulds. And it's another big thing that I talk, we've all grown up with shoulds. You should do this, you should do that. And the expectations our families have had on us and other people have had us. And when we should ourselves, it has such a heavy, forceful energy. And that's been an indicator for me, like the language we say to ourselves, like, oh, I should do this versus I want to do something. So are you doing something because you feel like you should be doing it because you're worried about how someone's going to judge you for it? Or is it something you really want to do? And the stuff that we want to do that's authentic to us, in the beginning, it's especially scary, which was part of the inspiration for me creating this channel, is because we were once people who were scared to break from these expectations, this mold of what we were expected to be and show up. And you don't have to. You can just be yourself. You don't have to be anybody else but you. But we don't know how to be. And it gets back to what you were saying about the relationship with self. And it starts with that. You have to be your own best friend first before you can have healthy relationships with people, before you can just navigate anything in life, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there's how do we do that? Like, I think there's a lot of focus on we have to love ourselves first. We have to love ourselves first. We have to love ourselves first. But I don't actually think that people know what the fuck that means.
Right.
And in my world, or in my idea of it, or at least in how I've come to it, is it's funny. There's this video I saw a long time ago, which was a parent with a child, their child, and she was like diaper age. I think she was like maybe 2 years old, something like that, 2.5 years old, 3 years old. And they had done stuff and like for a while, this child had been like working itself up. Anyway, it's like a 20-minute video that they compress. This child is having a huge emotional arc tantrum. And the father is literally just holding space for this child to have every single feeling it needs to have. Until
Wow.
it finally, like he just was like, he's like, I want to show you what I did. He's like, I literally hadn't had time. I could feel her that she needed this thing. But I like, because of how life was, we were moving, we were doing this, like, and we just like, my wife and I just didn't have the time. And finally I was like, all right, I'm going to literally just give her concerted, committed, full-on attention. And he just held space. Sometimes she would move towards him and hug, and he'd hug her, and sometimes she'd pull away and she'd like hit, and he would just literally create space, no judgment, until she finally, about 20 something minutes, just finally like collapsed in his arms and like held. So I think about, first of all, there's not a lot of people in the world who know how to love like that.
Yeah.
That is a kind of non-agenda. I don't want to fix. There's nothing wrong. All I need to do is be here in your experience until, and there's a way in which that parent trusted her and her system so much that he literally just went on her ride in a way that was safe. Like, I'm the parent, I'm going to hold your nervous system while you move through this.
Wow.
That to me is boots on the ground, real time, respect, trust, who you are and what you are is perfect and right. And I'm not going, even at like that young age, he wasn't infantilizing her.
Right.
Soothing her. He was soothing her in the most like true, real sense of that word, not in the codependent sense of that word. So when we talk about what self-love actually looks like, so much of us do the attention on self. I have to think about what's the right way to do something, and the so and so and blah blah. That is so much attention on ourselves, and really we're supposed to love love the way it feels to be in the world.
Yeah.
And that is a different focus. It's more about like coming from a place of actual genuine perfection, regardless, and sussing out like what, and I don't mean like I'm gonna go jerk off in a bathroom and snort coke off of someone's tits, and so I don't mean like that. That's not actually coming from a place of like real self-love. That's coming from a place of something else. So the reason why I wanted to slow us down and have that conversation is because I too many of us talk about self-love and it never lands. And I'm determined to have that change, because if people, anyone, one person, I don't even care, actually takes away from this conversation like, oh, self-love is, or self-care is, or listening to myself is, or respecting myself is, like if they come away from a different relationship to it, different meaning, that context will change the context. The context will change the content. So I just wanted to slow down a little bit.
First of all, I love the different angle that you shared there, and that sounds like a very interesting video, because it's hard, you know, when your child's having a temper tantrum, parent, you're going to want to react, you know, and to give your child that space, and like as adults and as children growing up, most of us didn't have that space to whatever, and it can, I think that ties into what we were talking about, like the words, right? A young child isn't going to have the words to express what they're feeling. So in that moment, they're only feeling rage. And it sounds like this parent created a safe environment for the child to just let that pass through.
Right, like she in the video, she has all these just like humans, it's rage and sorrow and grief and frustration and just like not being right in your skin, and like touch me, don't like the ambivalence of being a human being, and like it's all too like all of the things that you, me, and everyone feels. You see someone who looks perfect on screen or in like your Instagram or whatever, and I promise you, I swear to you, that person wakes up in the middle of the night with 3 a.m. terrors and is like, I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna do this thing tomorrow. I don't know what the fuck that thing is. I wonder if this person loves me. God, I feel so lonely inside of this. Will anybody, like, I promise you, like, I don't care who you are in the political divide, like whether you're on the left or the right, your person that you believe strongly in has that. Well, maybe some more than others. Maybe some more than others. But we're all fundamentally deeply human.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And that just ties in with what, you know, with the shoulds. Like when we have our feelings, sometimes we feel like we shouldn't have those feelings. Like, oh, I hate this person. I hate this person in my family because they did this, but I shouldn't feel that way because they're my family member.
They're my mother, they're my father, they're my brother, they're my sister. They're trying their best. They really did the best they could. They didn't know any better.
But what I've noticed, when there's a way where you can like constructively hate, if that makes sense, where you can say, yeah, you know what, I do hate this person because of what they did. And and that in itself, by just acknowledging, can have a profound experience. And then the energy is going to work its way through, because again, you're not stifling your feelings. You have to feel your feelings. You have to like work through it. And I find that when you give that acknowledgement, that self-acknowledgement, it creates that space of doing it. So yeah, I guess constructively hating is what I call it. But you know, you're not doing something in a rageful way. It's doing it in a healthy way where you're allowing yourself to just process and move this stuff. You're emotionally purging this stuff out of yourself to create that space. Because when we want to create something new in our life, we want to create a new identity, we want to have new experiences, we have to purge out the old shit that's taking up all the space in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree with you more. And I would even drill it down or tweak it just a little bit and say the purging is about what isn't you.
Right. I love that. Yeah.
It's the put on of who we've been told we need to be and how we need to be. And not being able to stomach it anymore. And listen, I'm one of those people that like my intention is for people to get free. And sometimes, because we don't know how to do it gracefully at times, is I don't care if you're a Game of Thrones person. Like I don't care if you Dracarys. You know, the Dracarys is when she unleashes the dragon, you know, in the dragon fire.
Yeah,
so
I haven't watched Game of Thrones.
So when she says Dracarys, the dragon's like, and like, so some of us sometimes, some of us sometimes, if we have it backed up, will unleash the dragon and the Dracarys will come out. And I personally, this is my philosophy, would rather it go out and burn the house down, and we'll clean it up after, than keep it in and have it keep killing you slowly the way it has been.
Yeah.
So I'm when we're learning how to do things, we stumble, we fall, we're shaky, we don't do it great, and there's got to be permission for that as well.
Absolutely. And that falls into the theme of just confidently being you.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, for me, when you feel like you can just be yourself, and the other thing I want to delineate too is just being confident doesn't mean you don't have fears. You'll have your fears, but you don't let the fear take over, because you're confident in what you've decided to do for yourself. You're confident that this is the right thing for you. You know it's what you want to do, and it's not about not having fear. It's just how much power you're going to hand over to fear. And so this is such a great conversation, and I've really enjoyed this. So as we wrap up, what are some tips you would like to share with anyone watching who is feeling stuck with all the stuff that we've been talking about today? What are some tips that can get them started?
Yeah. I first want to say, I always want to say this to the person, whoever it is and wherever you are. If you have done nothing except for be inside your own head, sort of beating yourself up a little bit. If you've been inside of it like, oh, it's too late. Oh, I'm that wrong. Oh, if you're there, I have been there. First, I just want to say that I have been there.
Yeah, me too.
Second, I want to say, do not pick up the 100-pound weight. You will overwhelm yourself if you pick up the 100-pound weight. So if you wanted to go back to school, or if you want to, let's say you want to lose weight, 100 pounds, or let's say you want to go out and date. I don't know where you are, but those things might be the 100-pound weight. Fuck the 100-pound weight. Pick up a 5-pound weight. Pick up a 2-pound weight. If you want to lose weight, as an example, put on some like sneakers, put on the workout clothing, and open the door and get in the car. That's all you need to do for 7 days. Those are the 2-pound weight you do for 7 days. Next week, you can actually drive to the gym. That'll be your 5-pound weight. You don't even have to go work out. You can just like go back home. The next week after that, you go, do you understand? Start small.
Yeah.
And I'm personally of the belief that just being with my fear and acknowledging it is sometimes the biggest act of courage I can do. Like sometimes I just have to sit with how afraid I am without doing anything about it for like as long as it takes until I'm able to do the 2-pound weight. Go slow and be kind, and when and if you can, find at least one person who can have your back.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And yeah, what I want to add to that is the pressure. You alleviate so much pressure, which is that weight that you're talking about, that it's just that shift in perspective, the way you broke it down so beautifully. It's just those little bite-sized little actions, not trying to get it all done in one shot.
No, be kind, be kind. We're all genuinely doing the best we can.
Absolutely.
Do not compare yourself to someone's, like, you know, if they're at the finish line of a marathon and you're still in the bleachers or you're still at home, please do not compare yourself. Or at least if you do, know that they had their own day one, like terrified moment themselves, and they got there just by doing the small moves every day.
Absolutely. And those small movements at least leads to movement. And it gets back to the story of my mom and how that woke me up, of just her keep saying one day, Start now. It can just be the smallest action. If you want to go away to school, do a Google search on schools. That's what I did with IPEC. When I was looking for a coaching program, I was like curious and I just started doing research, and then research led to one thing and then one thing. And so just start with the easiest thing.
Yeah.
And then the rest will move.
And that's enough. And that's enough. Yeah. And whoever you are and whatever you're doing out there, I don't know you at all, but I swear to you, just from my own life, when I felt completely hopeless, I swear to you that there's a possibility for something else, and I believe in you. Wherever you are, I believe in you.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. Ana, thank you so much for joining me today and being my first interview. And what's the best way for people to find you?
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel, which is called Disorderly Conducts with an S at the end. I also have a website, which is My Rightness, MYRIGHTNESS.com. That's also a really great place to find me. And then, of course, on the social medias.
Awesome. And you know what? I'll also include the links to all of that in the bottom of the show. Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you, whoever you are who are watching. I hope you got value from this amazing conversation. And definitely, I highly recommend checking out Ana's work. She's amazing. Thank you so much
for having me. I thank you. Appreciate it.